Yo, what is up, boys? It is your boy Zither here, back at it again to drop another What If series. This being, what if Deku was Taskmaster? Now, if you guys have seen the brand new Black Widow movie, then you'll definitely know why I'm dropping this at the time that I am. I'm pretty sure that this What If will probably get a little bit of more traction due to the fact that the movie's out now. And in case you guys haven't seen the Black Widow movie, I would actually definitely recommend you guys go give it a watch. The movie was kind of fire. Granted, it had its really dry moments here and there, but the movie itself with the fight scenes, honestly, I think it was kind of unmatched. The fight scenes were so clean, to be honest. But that being said, you're not here to hear me give a little Black Widow analysis. You're here for the amazing What If. That being said, make sure you guys go tell a friend and tell another friend. Check out the links in the description. And with that being said, hit it. Okay guys, so we start our story off with Deku in the quirk office. At this point, Deku is actually going to be 6 years old. Not because Deku's a late bloomer, but because in this version of events, I decided to make a slight little tweak to the story to make the story make a little bit more sense. Everybody in this version of events, or this little timeline, is going to unlock their quirks at 6 years old. Not because of, like any other reason than just, it's not really that big of a change, and it kind of helps for the story that I'm going for a little bit. You'll see what I mean. That being said though, Deku would basically be in the quirk office when he would essentially be told that he's gonna be quirkless. Deku would look at the doctors, he would drop the toy that he's holding, and he would look up as he would just say, "Mom, the doctor's lying, right?" Inko would look at Izuku and she would be like, she would cover her mouth with her hands, and this is when, just kidding, Deku is not going to be quirkless. So for those of you who were like, "Aw, bro, you finna make Deku quirkless?" Aw, yeah. Nope. Deku's gonna have a quirk. But don't worry though, it's not gonna be that big of a deal. Deku is of course going to be told that he does actually have a quirk in this version, and that quirk is going to be called mimicry. Deku at this point would basically go home thinking that his quirk is actually pretty awesome. Deku has the innate ability to basically copy people's movements, and yeah, Taskmaster. I know Taskmaster doesn't exactly have some superpower, but I feel like it'd be way better to give Deku a quirk rather than just make him quirkless and have this ability. I mean, it's honestly the same thing. Even if he didn't have a quirk, his capabilities with the ability of mimicking people or copying people is essentially going to be the end at the same of the day. At the end of the day, not the same of the day. But that being said, this is when Deku would get into the car and he would be extremely happy thinking, "Mom, my quirk is awesome. I can copy people? Wait, does that mean that I can copy like people with playing games and stuff?" And Inko would look at Deku and she would say, "I don't know, sweetie. I guess we'll just have to find out through the years." Deku would be going home smiling, and this is when Deku would wake up the very next day as he would be going to school. This is when Deku would arrive, and Deku would actually have gotten his quirk later than everybody else. Deku would have been a little bit of a late bloomer. That being said, this is when Deku would basically start telling everybody in the class what his quirk is. And Deku would actually be getting quite a little bit of people who were like, "Yeah, his quirk's kind of cool, it's not bad." And this is when Bakugou would walk over to Deku. After he sees that Deku's getting surrounded and people are starting to like Deku's quirk, Bakugou would walk over to Deku as he would say, "That quirk of yours is nothing, Deku. My quirk would beat yours in an instant." But Deku would immediately look at Bakugou and just be like, "Hey, Kachan, that's not nice. I mean, at least I have a quirk, right? You were saying that I was going to be quirkless." Bakugou would look at Deku and say, "You might as well be with a quirk like that," as he would start laughing at him, and his friends would honestly start doing the same. A bunch of the people in the class would start hopping onto Bakugou. They would start hopping on the man's, DICK, and everybody would just start being rude to Deku, to be honest. They would all follow the herd, I guess you could say. And, well, this is when Deku would go home crying. He would go to his bed, and Deku would just be upset. Deku would have his mother Inko walk into the room, and she would begin to tell Deku not to worry about it. That Bakugou doesn't get to decide how strong or weak his quirk is. He does. Deku would look at Inko and he would say, "You know what, Mom? You're right. I can make my quirk whatever I want it to be. If it's going to be weak, it's going to be because I'm weak. And I'm not going to let my quirk be determined by myself.
I'm gonna become better so that my quirk can get stronger. And someday I'll show Bakugou that I can be strong too. And this is when Inko would hug Izuku and Deku would look at her as he would thank her for giving him the little speech or inspiration. As it's at this point that Deku would basically go to school. Now, this is when Deku would basically, on the first day that he returns, by the end of the day, Deku would have had a normal school day, no bullying, nothing really going on. Everybody would have honestly stopped caring about Deku, and due to the fact that he has a quirk, he's not exactly getting bullied for that reason that he got in the original. So Deku's honestly having a normal day. After school, Deku would ask his mother Inko if she can write him up for karate, and Deku would actually be put in karate. She would do that same day. On that same day, the teacher would actually ask Deku to punch like a tab, right? Like a little wooden plank. And Deku would do just that. He would, he would reel his arm back and go, ha! But the board would have no damage. This is when the sensei would say, no, you're putting the force in your fist all wrong. You're exerting far too much energy. What you need to do is this. He would show Deku, and after Deku sees it one time, he would say, I think I got it. As he would smile a little bit. He would then look at the man with the board, and the board is a very thin one at that. It's not really that hard since Deku is 6 years old. Deku would reel his arm back and put all of his force into the punch. He would go, and the board would immediately break. As it's at this point that the sensei would look at Deku and be like, whoa, kid, how did you? As Deku would smile at him and Inko would say, he's pretty impressive, Maizuku. The sensei would say, when can he start? And she would say that, he can start, maybe today if he wants to. This is when the sensei would look at her and be like, yes, please start him today. Ingo would look at the sensei and be like, well, if you say so. She would say, so how much do I owe you? The sensei would look at her and be like, well, your student is going to be a great person. Your son is going to be a great student. So I'll give you a discount, 20% discount for the price that I usually give everybody else. She would smile at him, and this is when Deku would spend that entire afternoon learning the basics of karate. Punches, kicks, chops, basic stuff that his body can handle. He would, of course, not learn everything in one day. I mean, if he was like 14, he could probably do that all in one day, but Deku's body does have limitations, so he can't exactly learn everything off rip. This one, the sensei would tell Deku that, he's incredible, but one thing that he does need to know is that his body can only take him so far. His mind and, his body will know the movements, but, it doesn't mean he'll ever be able to do them perfectly if his body is not up to code. This is when Deku would hear those words and he would say, so I need to work on my body as much as I need to work on my quirk? The sensei would look at Deku and say exactly, as Deku would have of course told him his quirk is mimicry, and that's why he's so great at fighting. This is when the sensei would look at him and tell him that that's a great quirk for martial arts. He could honestly learn things very quickly, in record time even. And Deku would go to school the very next day being extremely excited, as Deku would just be happy. He would tell everybody that he learned karate, and he would begin to show people as they're like, whoa, Izuku, you're so strong. They'd start running around him. Now, this is when Deku would basically look at Bakugou, and Bakugou would say, whatever, karate is nothing when I have a powerful quirk. As he and Deku would just kind of be like, yeah, whatever. And it's at this point that they would actually go outside, as Bakugou would have just left it alone. They would go outside, and this is when they would actually play a little bit of soccer, right? They would set up, some cans and some old shoes that nobody's gonna wear, and they would set up their little goals, right? And this is when they would immediately begin to play soccer. This is when Kachan would start kicking the ball up into the air a bunch of times with his knee, and Deku would say, whoa, Kachan, that's so cool, let me try. He would throw the ball up into the air and he would start kicking it up. It would not come down. He would literally triple Bakugou's score in terms of like hitting the ball up a bunch of times. I don't know if you guys know what I'm talking about, but when you like kick it up and just keep doing that, that's basically what Deku and Bakugou were doing. This is when Bakugou would get a little angered by that, and they would then say, fine, Deku, since you're so good, how about you be on the other team? Deku would basically look at Bakugou and be like, all right, and he would end up getting one of the worst teammates possible. Deku would look at him and just say, don't worry, we got this, as he would be giving him a smile, which actually encourages the kid. And this is when Bakugou and his goons would say, all right, we get ball. Deku would say, what? And they would say fine, as they would get ball, and Deku would immediately just get scored on by Bakugou really easily too. But after Deku sees what Bakugou did, and the fact that Deku and Bakugou have like the same body build at this point, Deku would immediately be able to do everything that Bakugou just did, but better. Deku would mimic his movements, but put the karate training that he learned to use, and add more force to the kicks and more speed, as Deku would be able to pass right by Bakugou, and he would score a goal on them immediately. Bakugou would get angry and use every technique that he can think of to try to score, and Deku would go right back and do it 2 times better. Bakugou would get angry at this after about 10 minutes, and he would run at Deku as he would say, "You think you're better than me, Deku?" He would rush at him, and by the way, I'm saying it like that because, you know, they're both 6 years old. They're not going to be talking like this. Bakugou's not going to be talking like that. No, seriously, but quirkless Deku, you won't be nothing. I have a pretty impression of Bakugou, but you guys shouldn't mind it too much. That being said, this is when Deku would get rushed at by Bakugou, but immediately Deku would use one of the techniques his sensei taught him. He would weave out of the way, grab Bakugou's arm, and slam him onto the ground. That's something that, while you do need force strength to be able to do, as long as, you know, they're equivalent to you, you should be able to use just enough power. And Deku would knock Bakugou onto the ground, as it's at this point that, you know, he would just be like, whoa, what just happened? After this, Bakugou would get up and shoot an explosion right at Deku's face, and he would start getting beat up by the goons. So they would actually end up jumping Deku, and Deku would run home, as he would get home pretty angry, just be like, that's not fair. Kachan totally used more people against me. It was just me. And this is when Deku would go to his karate class, as he would end up asking the sensei if there's, you know, any ways for Deku to improve his body faster. The sensei would say working out would be great and some cardio, and Deku would do just that for the next 2 weeks. The sensei would of course show Deku how to do each and every single one of the movements because, you know, Deku needs a little bit of help. That being said, after the 2 weeks are over, due to the fact that Deku did the workouts as perfectly as you can basically do them, he would watch a couple of YouTube videos on how to get the best results, and Deku would be pretty sore. But after about 2 weeks of being able to do these workouts relatively perfectly, Deku would get incredible gains from what he was doing, and Deku would actually get 4 times the gains of a normal person, due to the fact that Deku's body is actually pretty good for packing muscle. And Deku would do just that. You know, obviously he's not going to get ripped, but, you know, he got a little stronger. You know, he got pretty decently strong. He's about 2 times stronger than he was. And for a little kid, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. This is when Deku would go back to school, and this time they would be playing soccer again. As Deku would go to the field, he would say, "Hey, can I play?" Bakugou would look at him and be like, "No, you can't." And the rest of the guys would be like, "Yeah, sure." This one, Bakugou would look at his friends and be like, "He can't play." And Deku would look at Bakugou as he's just like, "Come on, Kachan." Bakugou would look at Deku and say, "Don't call me that quirkless Deku." And Deku would just be like, "Bakugou, I'm not quirkless, remember?" Bakugou would be like, "You might as well be with that garbage quirk." Deku would then look at Bakugou and just be like, "Well, you know, you can't tell me what to do. I'm stronger than you now." After hearing that, Bakugou would get angry due to his god complex, and he would rush at Deku, to which Deku would sidestep him and punch him right in the jaw. As Bakugou would fall down to the ground, he would start bleeding and he would start crying as he runs away and just leaves the park completely. After this, Deku would immediately just be like, "Yeah, I finally did it." And Bakugou's friends would just be like, "Whoa, Deku, I didn't know you were this strong." They would immediately just look at Deku and just be like, "You're so much better than Kachan." They'd be like, "Can we be your friends? We're sorry we jumped you." Deku would be like, "Yeah, sure, don't worry about it, as long as it doesn't happen again." And this is when Deku would literally be Mr. Steal Your Friend, as he would take all of Bakugou's friends. This would basically lead to Deku continuing to get stronger and stronger, even faster than before. And 1 month would actually end up passing of Bakugou staying in his own lane and still hanging out with those 2 other kids. He would hang out with them whenever Deku wasn't there, and they would have a very weird dynamic where Bakugou just avoids Deku and is pretty angry at Deku. He's even training secretly to try to become more powerful than Deku. But due to one more month passing after that, and Deku completing basically most of the training for karate, now all Deku pretty much needs is for his body to be able to keep up with the movements. Deku would basically spend 1 month, and after that 1 month of training with karate, he would be a perfect master at every basic move that Deku's body can let him do. It's probably going to take him another 2 years for Deku to fully be able to utilize karate at its fullest extent, but Deku is doing pretty well for where he's at now. Deku would even learn a couple of boxing techniques and even some kickboxing due to the fact that, well, he is Taskmaster. That being said, this is when Bakugou would of course challenge Deku after 1 month, and I'm just gonna say it right now, he would lose even worse than before. This would lead to Deku just honestly leaving Bakugou in his dust. Deku would start getting stronger and stronger, and he would train his body to the utmost limit. This would basically start to irritate Bakugou, and after a bunch of losses to Deku, he would start losing his confidence. This would lead to Mitsuki noticing that Bakugou hasn't been the same, and she would realize that the reason that he's not so confident is because, Inko's son is so much better than Katsuki. That basically led to Bakugou losing some confidence, and because of that, Bakugou's not the same person he once was. This would lead to her moving Bakugou from schools, and she would have Bakugou basically just not hang out with Deku. This would basically happen like that for about 4 years, and afterwards, Bakugou's father would move away from the area as they would basically end up having to leave for, a new job opportunity. That being said, after Bakugou got transferred, Deku after that would basically take Bakugou's role and would be pretty much Mr. Popular. Deku would actually be on every sports team after a certain something happened on a certain day. And we're just going to say that about 2 years would have passed, right? 2 years would have passed. And Deku is now currently 8 years old. On the day that he was 8 years old, he was walking by the park and he was basically just watching some kids play basketball. As Deku was asked if he wanted to play, he would join, and at first he was pretty bad, but after watching the kids play for a little bit, Deku was able to copy what they were doing and would even do it even better than they did. That would lead to them asking what school he plays for, and Deku would, after being asked that, he would say that he doesn't play for any school. They would say that he definitely should and that it would be so much fun to play against him in a tournament or something. And Deku would the very next day go to class, as he would just be in gym class. They would be playing some basketball and Deku would school everybody, leading to the coaches being like, bro, I need you on my team. What is it going to cost? Deku would be like, nothing. And this is when Deku would join the basketball team. This would lead to him going back to PE class, and when they run track, Deku would obliterate that too, which would lead to the track coach wanting Deku, and this would honestly just continue. It would be a cycle to which Deku basically ends up joining each and every single sports team. Deku would be goated, and because I like basketball, I'm going to cover the finals for the basketball team next year. Deku will now be 9 years old, and their team would actually be up 79-43. Deku's defense and offense was just too crazy, and the finishing game shot, Deku would have literally went to the right, between the legs, behind the back, spin move, and faded away in a kid's face, as that kid broke his ankles. Yeah, that man literally fell on his, he fell on his ASS, and that man was done for. That being said, Deku smiled at him and he basically walked over him afterwards, Allen Iverson, as Deku basically proceeded to master every single sport you can basically think of. And by the time that he is 16, the time of the anime, Deku is he's pretty much in every school sports team, which would have led to Deku not even attending any of the practices, but more or less just kind of being there at the games. Deku doesn't even need the practices. He can just watch people, and if they start beating him, Deku can copy them and just start being better than them, Deku is just a master at this point. And now that he is 16, not only is he good at sports, but Deku is a master at every single form of combat that Deku has tried to learn. Deku is a master at boxing, kickboxing, judo, taijutsu, jujitsu. I don't know, man. I don't really know how to fight like that. Deku's just really good at fighting, all right? Deku's, I'd say, about as good as Taskmaster is. Just not half as strong, since Taskmaster does have more experience and is more physically adept at his powers. That being said, this would basically lead to Deku being built like pretty much like a Greek god. And Deku Oh wait, no, I said 16. No, Deku is 15 at this point, right? Because of 10 months, that's when he's gonna turn 16. Yeah. Anyways, now we are going to be skipping to the day of the sludge villain, but we're not gonna be the only one skipping. Deku is actually skipping that entire day of school to do a little bit of outdoor parkour. The weather was nice that day, and Deku decided it would be a little bit of fun. So that being said, Deku would be jumping across building to building, just not even going to class in his uniform. As he's running, he would notice that a green sludge just came out of the sewer. Deku would stop to take a look at that thing, and this is when Deku would jump down from the building. As he would notice what that is, he would get closer and be like, what is that? As immediately more of it would come out, and the sludge villain would then attack Deku as it would say, give me your body, kid. Deku would look at it as he would say, no, get away from me. And Deku would then literally just try to punch that thing away. But the sludge villain would grab onto Deku and it would start suffocating him. Deku would start trying to grab at the sludge villain and get out, but Deku simply can't. He can't even hurt the sludge villain. Deku would try to hit the sludge villain in the eye, but it would just move the location of them, and Deku would not be able to do a thing to it. And let's just say Deku gets done pretty dirty. He has no real weapons to help him out with the sludge villain, and he has nothing but his hands. So Deku's gonna almost, lose his life. He almost gonna perish if it wasn't for All Might, as All Might would jump out and be like, I am here. As, he'd basically talk to All Might, and All Might would ask him if he's okay. Deku would say he is. He would get an autograph, and All Might would, of course, jump off. In this version, All Might is not going to be dropping the sludge villain, and Deku is not. I repeat, he is not going to be getting one for all, because it's not what if Deku was Taskmaster and got one for all. I'm trying to go through more of just his quirk. He just wants to make that powerful type of route instead of what if Deku was Taskmaster and was broken. So yeah. That being said though, after Deku realized that he was kind of useless in terms of dealing with a villain like that, Deku would realize that he definitely is going to be needing a lot of gadgets if he's going to want to survive in the hero world. If he was to ever have to fight against somebody on the level of All Might, Deku would wholeheartedly get stomped. Deku would get crushed if he was to ever have to fight against somebody like All Might. Probably not like if it was him specifically, because All Might wouldn't be able to hit Deku, but All Might is just too strong to hurt. And Deku's just normal hand-to-hand combat won't do. Deku only has a mastery over shield, the sword, bow staff, and arrows and stuff like that, but Deku doesn't have a mastery over more lethal weapons, I guess you could say. So, after Deku basically realizes, he would end up realizing that what he needs are gadgets, and that is what Deku would spend the 10 months training. During those 10 months, Deku would of course train on those couple of things, and Deku would basically learn how to use weaponry, such as enhanced guns, like things that can shoot at literal lasers and stuff like that. Deku's not going to be playing with none of these plastic bullets, none of that. Deku is going to be using some real weapons, This is basically what Deku would be doing, apart from going out with a bunch of girls, because Deku, as I said, he's on every sports team. He's literally Mr. Popular, and Deku, whenever he's not training or working out, is pretty much going out with another girl every other month or week, depending on what Deku feels like. That being said, I'm going to be skipping over to the day of the entrance exam, and Deku would end up putting in 2 weapons for him to use. He would be using number 1, a shield, and a bow staff. Those are the 2 weapons that Deku is basically going to be taking into the UA Sports Festival. That being said, Deku would of course go into this school. He would realize how beautiful the school truly looks, and he would of course go inside. There is going to be 0 interaction with Uraraka in this version, because Uraraka is not going to trip, and Deku is most definitely not going to trip, because even if he did, he would of course catch himself. But honestly, I see no way for Deku to fall for no reason, since he's not even nervous. And with that being said, Deku would go inside, and let's just say he does not even need to study, bro. Deku's a genius. Like, obviously he's not on the level of Nezu, or he's not going to get like a 100%, but Deku's going to get at least a 90 on the test. Deku is not no slouch when it comes to intellect. Deku is extremely intelligent, and so is Taskmaster, so Deku definitely has to be. By the way, guys, comment your opinion on what you guys thought of the Taskmaster in the Black Widow movie. Honestly, I feel like the character of Taskmaster wasn't really handled that well. I mean, the fact that it turned out to be his daughter and like the fact that it was a girl, I don't really care about that, but I don't know. Something about the storyline and like just the way that like Taskmaster was used in the Black Widow movie just felt like complete injustice towards what Taskmaster really is. I mean, I feel like Taskmaster could have beaten Black Widow in the first fight, and they just did the man dirty, honestly. Like, Taskmaster is not some lapdog who just listens completely to what somebody says. That is absolutely not what Taskmaster is, and that's just my personal take on the movie. But let me know what yours is. That being said, Deku would of course go outside to the physical portion of the quirk exam, or the test for the UA entrance exams, and Deku would be out there as Deku just has a hoodie, some jeans, and some track shoes. As Deku's honestly just ready. Deku even has a shield in hand and the staff. As Deku's standing at the door, this is when Deku would look around and just notice that nobody's telling them to go. And this is when Deku would do some critical thinking and be like, but heroes are never told when to go. I doubt I'll get in trouble for this. Deku would use his bow staff to pretty much lunge up into the air as if it was a pogo stick, and Deku would literally jump over the UA gate as immediately off rip Deku would start smashing robots left and right. Deku is a normal human even if he is extremely powerful. So by the first robot that he sees, Deku would lunge at it as he would smack the bow staff and hit the robot, blowing the robot's head clean off. This would lead to Deku running on top of the robot, and he would immediately jump down onto another one as he would hit the robot with the shield, rip off one of its arms, and shove it into another one, as that's 3 easy robot points. Deku would basically continue to do this back and forth until he gets so many points that it's not even funny how many he gets. And Deku would do great things in the quirk entrance exam. Why do I keep saying that? In the entrance exam, right? He would do great things. That being said, this would basically lead to Deku just getting about, let's see, 112 points. 112 points, right? That's reasonable. If Deku is just going to be going on a rampage, 112 points should be attainable, right? That being said, Deku would be pretty tired by this point, and this is when he would basically hear the ground rumble. As many people would start running away, Deku would notice Uraraka off in the distance, and Deku would immediately rush at her direction. His body would move. He would have told himself to just leave her there, but his body just went on his own, and Deku would rush at Uraraka. He would throw the rubble off of her, pick her up with his arms, and just rush. Like, he would get out of there immediately. Deku is pretty buff, to say the least, so him carrying Uraraka is nothing at all, and Deku would run full speed. He would haul ass out of there, as Deku would basically end up saving Uraraka, take her to Recovery Girl, and Deku would pretty much, just dip out of there. He's just like, yeah, I have nothing really else to do here. This is when Deku would basically just start thinking in his head, I wonder how many likes Zether's gonna make these kids have to get before they can get part 2. And to answer that question, boys, you guys are going to be needing to get 300 likes if you guys want this entire... you guys are going to be needing to smash 1,000 likes if you guys want this entire series to be out. That being said, if this little, what if doesn't really go according to plan and it gets like less than 3K views, then I'm just gonna cancel it. But if it does do well, I promise, guys, I will be finishing the entirety in about 3 to 4 parts. With that being said, though, guys, you guys all know the drill. I love each and every single one of you guys. Make sure to check out the links in the description for my Discord server, Dank God, my creator for most of my thumbnail backgrounds, and the Akatsuki channel, which will be linked down below in the description. With that being said, though, guys, it has been your boy Zether. I love each and every single one of you guys, and I am out. Peace.